Politicians in the Baltics are now selling nuclear power plants as some kind of magic shield, energy independence, green, modern, heroic. On the technical side, the same countries don't have a nuclear regulator, don't have staff, and their entire grid stability still hangs on a single corridor to Poland. Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. The core conflict is simple. You have small, aging, deindustrialized economies with shrinking populations and very modest electricity demand, suddenly announcing national nuclear projects as if they were France or Korea. On paper, it sounds like sovereignty. In engineering terms, it looks much more like buying a very expensive car for a city that has no roads and no drivers. By the end of this, you'll see why these projects are mostly political theater, who actually earns on them, and who gets the bill in the Baltics and the rest of Europe. Let's start from the ground. Physics and wires, not slogans. Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia left the old Brel ring and are now formally synchronized with Europe. In practice, the Baltic grid hangs on a limited number of lines to Poland and a few submarine cables to Sweden and Finland. The backbone is one double-circuit 330 to 400 kilovolt interconnector. If that corridor fails during a winter storm, all the beautiful Brussels documents are worthless. Here's where the story stops making sense. You cannot stabilize a 50 Hertz system with press releases. You stabilize it with heavy rotating machines, gas or coal units, big hydro or nuclear. Wind and solar don't set frequency, they just follow it. When frequency disappears, inverters shut down and politely leave you in the dark. Inside this reality, Latvia talks about its own nuclear power plant. Estonia talks about small modular reactors by 2035. On paper, Estonia wants at least 200 specialized staff by 2028. In reality, their nuclear fundamentals program started in 2023 with a cohort of 12 students. Latvia doesn't even have that. They have no nuclear research reactor, no national nuclear institute, no independent nuclear safety authority staffed with experienced physicists. If you remember only one thing from this video, let it be this. You cannot compress 50 to 60 years of nuclear school building into one political cycle. Compare that to Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan. They ran research reactors since the 1950s. They built nuclear physics institutes. They hosted branches of serious technical universities. When they say we want a plant, there is at least a human and institutional base behind the sentence. In the Baltics, the institutional base is a memorandum. Now to the players and incentives. Latvia signs declarations with Poland, Sweden, Finland, and Estonia about nuclear cooperation in the Baltic region and alignment with US programs on advanced reactors. Estonia ties itself to a specific Western design, a approximately 300 megawatt small modular reactor, and talks about launching the first units around 2035. Everyone is supposed to believe this is about regional energy security and climate responsibility. The system, however, is built around much more practical motives. For US and other Western vendors, small Baltic states are ideal showcase markets. Politically loyal, structurally dependent, hungry for big projects with a flag on them. If a reactor is more expensive than planned or underutilized in reality, that cost is diluted across tariffs and taxes in a very disciplined society. For Brussels, Baltic nuclear ambitions fit the narrative of decoupling from Russia and decarbonization, regardless of whether the numbers add up. For local elites, nuclear is a way to signal seriousness and importance. It is also a way to open a pipeline of feasibility studies, consulting contracts, training programs, EU funds, and national budget allocations. Whether the reactor ever runs at 90% capacity factor is tomorrow's problem. Today's benefit is being seen at the same table as big energy players. This is the part no politician wants to explain on TV. For a modern nuclear project, concrete and steel are almost the smallest problem. The bottleneck is people and regulators. You need a competent, independent safety authority. You need several hundred specialists with not just diplomas, but thousands of hours of operational experience. You need 10 to 15 years of boring groundwork before you switch on anything. Instead, we see Estonia planning 200 specialists in 3 years. Latvia talking about nuclear with no regulator at all. From your country, does this look like strategy or just improvisation with a flag on top? Let's move to how this hits ordinary people. The Baltic economies already live with structurally higher energy prices and volatility than the European core. One cold winter, one interconnector problem, and spot prices spike. Small businesses see their margins disappear in a month. Households see temporary compensations on their bills and quietly understand they are paying twice. once as consumers, once as taxpayers. Now add a nuclear mega project scaled to a country of 1 to 2 million people. Even with generous external financing, the capital cost per kilowatt will be very high. If industrial demand is flat or declining, the plant will be underloaded, but the debt service and fixed operating costs will still exist. This is where the spreadsheet quietly turns into social unrest. Prices have to rise, support schemes have to grow, or the state has to cut somewhere else. If you live in Latvia or Estonia, does this match what you see? Modest real wages, emigration, slow deindustrialization, and in parallel, very ambitious energy decisions that assume strong, growing demand for decades. There's one more technical angle that nobody in Brussels likes to say out loud. Nuclear only makes sense in a system that can use its output flexibly or export it reliably. France can export, Finland can balance between nuclear, hydro, and industry. The Baltics, without a large industrial base and with limited export capacity, risk building a baseload machine into a grid that is structurally designed around imports and short-term balancing. This is where it moves from a regional press release to your electricity bill and your rent. You don't just pay for kilowatt hours, you pay for the entire ideological package, leaving the old synchronous zone before you have enough backup, insulting your own fossil backup plants as dirty while still needing them for frequency, and then layering nuclear marketing on top without the staff, the regulator, or the demand profile to support it. If you work in energy or industry, you probably see this earlier than everyone else. Every time the word independence appears in an energy speech, you can almost hear the hidden line, and someone will pay for the redundancy, the inefficiencies, and the learning curve. In small aging frontline economies, that someone is not multinational corporations, it is households, SMEs, and the remaining real sector. The main thesis is simple and not very comforting. Baltic nuclear talk today is less about electrons and more about symbols. The physical system they actually depend on is still fragile, import dependent, and held together by a few lines of steel and a lot of external goodwill. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. And try to remember, slogans don't power grids, systems do.